Welcome to Real Estate Agent Superstars. I'm your host, RJ Baxter with Intercap Lending. And today I've got with me Jason Sirois of Compass Real Estate. He is a real estate agent extraordinaire and all-around good guy. He's been in the business about 5 years. And what I really like about Jason is he has perfected his buyer process. And he's going to talk to us a little bit more about that today. And really appreciate being on the show, Jason. Thanks for joining us.
RJ, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit more about yourself. You've been in real estate about 5 years. Why real estate? Why did you get involved in this crazy business?
You know what, my kind of origin story to real estate is, I think, kind of unique. I was actually I was in a sales operations role at a startup in San Francisco. And I was listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast religiously. And I was listening to all these success stories, and it dawned on me that so many people who were finding success in the real estate investment space also had their real estate license. Not all of them, but some of them at least. And the original thought was, man, I need to start buying real estate because it seems to be a major part of most people's wealth creation journey. And in terms of, getting my license, I thought, well, I really love what I'm doing, but the career path, the trajectory, I didn't think it was really going to lead me to a place where I wanted to be, having the freedom to create my own schedule and to work outside. I was kind of, sick of being chained to a desk. But I did love what I was doing and who I was working with, and it was a fantastic experience overall. So I guess Bigger Pockets was the ultimate gateway for me. And then fast forward, it was 2018. I had quit my job, studied for my real estate license, and flew out to Colorado and took the exam, interviewed with 5 brokers, and 3 weeks later, I was here doing real estate. So it was a major change, a lot of new location, new state, new career, kind of all at once.
Crazy. So why? Well, first of all, where did you come from? Where did you move from?
From San Francisco.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why Colorado?
I mean, have you been here? I mean, so
Never.
Yeah, right. I visited Colorado the first time, I believe it was 2015, and the good friends that I came to visit, they took me around, took me under their wing, and we did like everything you can imagine. It was like the most Colorado weekend ever. So we did like Fort Collins, brewery touring. We went snowboarding at Winter Park, snowboarding at Copper, explored Boulder, hiked at Chautauqua, and had a day out in Denver. And I was just like, man, this place has everything. It's beautiful. It has all the outdoor activities that I love. And Denver is really, it's the perfect sized city. And at that time, I wasn't done with my time. I was really enjoying the career path I was on and the people I was surrounding myself with in the Bay Area. And I just wasn't quite ready to make that change. But when my 30th birthday rolled around, I thought to myself, hey, like, I'm getting the life compass out here. Where am I going? And am I, ending up going to end up in the right place? And, I love the people that I was living with at the time, but I was like, man, I'm 30 and I have 3 roommates and I want to buy a house someday. And buying a house in San Francisco is just a tough barrier to get over, as most can probably imagine.
Yeah, totally. So when you moved here, you started right into real estate. Did you have immediate success, or were there some struggles early on?
It's funny. When I was interviewing with some brokers, one of them had told me, hey, expect to not, if you do this on your own and don't join a team, expect it to take about 6 months before you get your first sale. And I thought to myself, I've done this sales thing for the past 6 years. I got this dialed in. It's not going to take me that long. I'm going to do this. I've got enough savings to just, make things last for a little bit. I'm going to be all right. And it took me 5 months and 30 days to get my first sale. And so that was like the most accurate. I don't know if I just kind of set that into my subconscious, but the universe just ensured that it was going to be exactly that 6 month mark. So No, not an immediate success. I mean, I was trying all the things. I was calling FISBOs, I was calling expireds with zero success. I didn't really, even though I had cold called in the past and I had gotten good at it in that realm, I didn't know how to talk about real estate. So I
Mm.
just needed to get the reps in. And oddly enough, my very first ever client was an employee of the company that I had stopped working for prior to
Oh,
coming up
really?
to Colorado. So I thought to myself, man, all these efforts, doing open houses, calling FISBOs, calling expires, letting people know on social media what I'm doing, where I'm doing it, all that ended up leading to, a friend working
Mhm.
with me in Colorado. And, it was definitely related in some ways, in that, the social media presence and making sure like mission number one, make sure that everybody who knows who I am knows what I do and where I do it. I think that's ultimately how it ended up snowballing from that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was that kind of an aha moment for you when you helped your friend as opposed to people you were cold calling, or
Yeah, it
did
was an
you?
aha moment to realize, like, dear Lord, this job is way harder than I thought it was going to be. um, so, yeah, kind of funny enough, because I realized it took me 6 months to get my first transaction closed, I actually joined a team for a very short period of time. It was about 4 months. I was on this team, and, it was a great relationship with that particular team, and it just ended up, parting ways after I realized, hey, I think I can actually do this on my own. I think I have a strong enough sphere of influence here, and things are starting to pick up some momentum. So I took the leap and, changed brokers about 11 months into the whole game, and I've been on doing my own thing since then.
Okay. So
Yeah.
when did things kind of turn for you and where it started to really click and you started closing transactions consistently?
Yeah, it was kind of a distinct moment. So
Oh,
it was in right around March of 2020, right before the whole world shut down. I
mm,
had been working with these clients for a while, and they were on their eighth. Well, let me back up just a little bit. They had been writing several offers, and these offers just weren't getting accepted. And so I went to my managing broker at the time, and I was like, "What the heck is going on? Like, what am I doing wrong here?" And this was such a light bulb moment for me. He goes, "Well, look, you're writing offers, and these offers they're clean, that they're strong, but you're writing an offer for what the home is worth today, and you're losing to people who are writing an offer for what the home is worth 3 to 6 months from now." And I
mm,
thought, oh, okay, interesting, light bulb. And from that moment, like the very next offer that I wrote for these folks got accepted. And what was even better is the home actually appraised at value. And it was just like gangbusters at that point. It was like it was on. I totally knew how to analyze a property through assessing the market condition and where things were going and how to be competitive in a multiple offer situation. And I just applied the same formula and, made some tweaks depending on, each property, of
mm.
course. But it
Yeah.
was, I started to really find the stride and the formula necessary to win bidding wars.
So what is the formula, or what did you learn at that point on how to
Yeah,
analyze those properties?
for sure. So for me, it started with really going deep on the buyer consultation from the get-go. I mean, the very first conversation you have with somebody, this should not be just over the phone. This should ideally be in person, and if not, then over a Zoom. And I really refined the buyer consultation. And I really don't like the word presentation, by the way, because it's like you're not presenting to people. This is a
Mm,
conversation. You're having a
yeah.
consultative approach to this. And I wanted to go deep and find out, okay, what's really important to people? What are your wants? What are your needs? Is there any compromise in these areas? What geography is important to you? And really being a great listener was key in that. So if you take good
Mm,
notes during that process, and then you show them live within like what's available on the market through whatever platform you're using, and really explaining what are the levers that these buyers are going to be able to pull in a multiple offer situation, which, as we remember, like everything in 2020 through 2022 until June was
mm,
was a bidding war. So ultimately it was, hey buyer, like here's the process. Let's dive into what it is you want. Let's get you in touch with an amazing lender, so we are clear and we're not starting to shop for homes that are going to be out of price range for you. And then understanding once we enter this market, which is very competitive, how do we make your offer stand out? And, the elements of the offer that we need to know before your earnest money becomes non-refundable is, number one, is the house in good condition, as in, inspection here. So are we talking about how's the roof, sewer line, HVAC, foundation, major plumbing, major electrical, and radon? I call those the big seven. So those are all the big items that we can probably ask the seller to work with us on, even if it's a bidding war situation. And I have found that most sellers are just like, yeah, hey, no problem. That's a reasonable ask if there's some root intrusions in the sewer line or we have some major repairs. And the other thing is being realistic about where the home is likely to appraise. Because as we both know, you're only going to get a loan for the value based on the opinion of an appraiser. So I took a couple, I know I'm kind of long-winded here, but when I took a couple appraisal, I guess it was some continuing education classes on how do the appraisals work, what data are they using, how does an appraiser think. Whenever I'm looking at the recent sales for a comparable home that a client's going to make an offer on, I really want to get precise and in as narrow of a window as possible where the home is likely to appraise. So then with all this information, we can then make an informed, confident decision knowing that, hey, we're going to appraise around this value. And if I know already that, hey, they have offers that are way above where this house is likely to appraise, when we have this discussion about appraisal gap coverage, are you prepared to overpay for the house? And then we have to have that discussion up front with our lender early on so that should we need to make adjustments to the down payment to make things work, then we can do that. And obviously, you're aware that if you're putting very little down, 3.5%, it's very hard to wiggle on that. But if you're putting 20% down, you have a lot more wiggle room in that appraisal gap coverage. So it was really just, learning the contract, learning which levers to pull and when, and communicating those levers to the clients.
So I have a lot of questions based on what you were just saying. There's a lot of good stuff there. So you're talking about a buyer consultation, and you were referencing looking at where a house appraises for, and having that conversation about bidding over the asking price potentially. Do you do the consultation once the buyer has a particular house in mind, or do you, like, for example, if they're just starting to talk to you and not necessarily out looking yet, do you bring examples? How do you handle that?
So the buyer consultation happens at the very first meeting. That, this is like, maybe somebody refers a buyer to me, a client, a friend, somebody comes to me and says, hey, I'm thinking about buying a house. Should we talk? And we go deep into the process at that point. But once they are pre-approved and ready to go financially, that's when we can truly go out and start shopping. But there's really no shopping that occurs before that point.
So that's when you have that conversation about what it looks like to bid over the asking price.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So
if that's
part of the buyer consultation is understanding market conditions, right?
Okay.
And it's setting expectations like, hey, if you want to live in these 5 neighborhoods, so does everybody else. And if you have and if your budget is, well, I mean, in the Denver metro, our prices have risen quite a bit, but if you're shopping between, 600 and 800, that is, in the Highlands or Sunnyside, Berkeley, Wheat Ridge, Golden. I mean, that's where everybody wants to live. So we just have to be realistic about, hey, where are things going to go? Are you going to be in a bidding war? And if so, how do you remain competitive while also keeping your earnest money protected?
So do you have a checklist of things you like to go through on the consultation?
I am all about standard operating procedures. I've got SOPs for everything.
I love it.
And I think that's honestly my sales operations background that has really come through. And that was a lot of value or a lot of experience that really helped me in real estate early on. It was just having processes for everything. Because at the end of the day, we can remember, or at least maybe I should only speak for myself, I can remember 90% of the things that need to happen. And there's probably a good chance that if I forgot that other 10%, the client wouldn't even notice. But it's a 10 out of 10 experience when absolutely every single checkbox is checked in the process. And this goes for people who have bought once or twice with me. This isn't just like a first-time buyer checklist. So whether you're a good friend, whether you're a complete stranger, someone who we just, we met on through Instagram or through realtor.com or Zillow, we're all going to go through the same process, so nothing's forgotten.
How have you mapped that out? Do you have your whole process in one place mapped out, or do you have like the pre, the pre-outlooking process, and then the during the looking process, and then the after closing process?
Every stage of the process has a series of tasks that should occur, right? And, as somebody is going from, hey, I'm just thinking about shopping, I just want to start conversations, versus, hey, we are now pre-approved and we have buyer agency signed and we are working together and shopping together, and then under contract, and then post-closing. So every one of those stages has a series of steps. And where do I keep all of those? It's really, I guess I could talk about this in a couple of ways. The Compass CRM, the Compass platform, is one of the absolute best CRMs in the real estate game. I was a Salesforce administrator in my previous life. And when I first got into real estate, I was really just dabbling around different CRMs. And I really was surprised at how lackluster and antiquated a lot of the technology seemed to be. Yeah. And, with no, sponsorships or plugs or anything, I found that Follow Up Boss was an amazing CRM. I had some experience with Sierra Interactive. I liked them a lot. But then the Compass CRM is as good as it gets as well. And there's Siri thinking I'm talking to it there. So all those steps and those standard operating procedures live within the platform.
Is it proprietary, or is it the
Compass? Yeah, the Compass CRM is only available to Compass agents. But if you're not with Compass and you're looking for like an amazing CRM, again, just a plug that's not sponsored by any means, Follow Up Boss is a really good one.
I've heard really good things about Follow Up Boss, and I'm actually in there with a real estate team I work with, and I like it. Yeah, we don't use it to the depth that you guys use it as agents. We're just putting notes in there on follow-ups and that kind of thing. But
nice.
I can see it's a strong platform.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So then tell me a little bit, without going too much into the weeds, a little bit how that looks in your CRM. Do you have it where you have, for example, a layout that has everything sort of mapped out, or do you have reminders that go? Does the CRM send emails to your buyers? All of the above?
Yeah, it's kind of all of the above. This particular CRM does everything except for send text messages in an automated manner, which is fine, because I have found that in this industry, there's a lot of people who strive to just automate every single step of this process, which I think is so silly, because you should stay in the process, stay in flow with your people. And if you want to automate everything, I mean, I don't think this is the right career path for you, because the human element of real estate is what makes it special. And you can't just send automated happy birthday messages every year and expect that referral business is going to flow your way. So anyway, that's quite a digression away from the question, I realize. But, in terms of, what does that particular platform do, the Compass CRM, I can create templated emails, which I like to actually be the person who hits send on a lot of these things, because they're going to be, a template is just an outline, and there's going to be certain things that are changed. Like, for example, when I'm launching a transaction that has just gone under contract on the buy side, I want to let my clients know, hey, I'm going to introduce you to our transaction coordinator. This is when your earnest money is due to this location. If you plan on wiring the funds, make sure you call this number. And these are all things that have to actually be manually changed within that template, as you can imagine. And another example of that would be at the end of a transaction, I have a utilities checklist for my clients. Hey, and I have one for Denver, one for Lakewood, one for Wheat Ridge, one for Arvada, one for Golden, because all the municipalities have a little bit different, rules, like who's your water, which is changed by title, but then who's your power provider, who's your gas and electric provider, those types of things. So that can be templated out, and just the PDF is attached automatically to those emails, and you just hit send and go.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, and I think what you said, I know you thought you sidetracked a little bit, but I think that was a key point about not automating everything. I
Yeah,
think that, that's what's going to separate people as we get into this era of AI. And I mean, that's automation at its craziest, right? I mean, if AI can do all that stuff, what's the purpose of having a real estate agent or a lender?
yeah, 100%. I mean, nobody wants to do business with robots.
No.
Even though ChatGPT can write a great listing description, sure, that's fine, but it's not going to draft a quality message for somebody that when you're, condoling them for the death of a family member or consoling them for the death of a family member or wishing them a happy birthday. I mean, send a video message to somebody instead of just a generic happy birthday from my CRM. I mean, my dentist sends me that. That's fine. I don't need that from people I'm actually close with.
Right. I mean, my personal opinion is I think in 5 years that AI could potentially write messages like that seem authentic, but
Yeah.
still to have the human element out of it, I think people want that.
Yeah.
They want a person they can have a conversation with face to face and
Absolutely.
really and be listened to.
Yeah, I just came back from the Tom Ferry conference, the summit event that is his annual big, like 6,000 people get together, and it's this amazing presentation of what's current, what's happening in technology, and there was a huge emphasis on AI, as nobody was surprised to see, but some of the
Yeah.
tools were truly mind blowing that are here today in video, in eye contact with a camera while you're looking away from the camera and reading a script and all kinds of strange things. But my my opinion on that is that you can a lot of AI generated content and or whatever kind of things that we're sending out to the masses that might make somebody look good, but what you can't fake is that face-to-face interaction. And there's going to be a value put on authenticity as more and more AI is brought to market, in my opinion.
Mhm. I agree, absolutely, and that's what's going to keep us relevant as professionals. So,
Yeah, I'm really not scared of our jobs going away in this industry. I don't think you can remove the human element, and I don't think an algorithm is going to be able to negotiate very well when things come up at inspection, or you have a low appraisal, or you need to actually have a human element,
totally.
because the face to face, or maybe not face to face, but the human to human element of a real estate transaction with the
Mhm.
cooperating agent on the other side or with the lender. I have absolutely had a lot of concessions granted because of the human to human approach that's taken.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So back to your buyer process.
Yeah.
What are some key things you've learned over your career that are some I don't know, some things that stand out as processes that you put in place that have made a huge difference?
Don't skip any steps. I
Yeah.
mentioned that already, but it's important to, make sure that everybody is going through the same standard operating procedures. Whenever you
Uh,
try to take a shortcut, it can come back and bite you because maybe somebody didn't have an expectation of a certain outcome, or did have an expectation falsely. Um, and really doing the work and just putting in the time when you're advising your client. First of all, we have fiduciary responsibility to them if they are under buyer agency, and by taking the time to analyze the comparable sales and convey and communicate your offer strategy and why you think it's going to win, that's where all the trust is built, and that's where the referrals are going to come if you're lucky, right? You got to build that trust, and people need to feel and understand that you truly do have their best interest in mind. Because if they're just a number, or if they're just a check to you, it's
mhm.
it's going to show. It's going to show very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that term, offer strategy. So what does that look like, and how do you position that as a strategy?
So if I have a client who is interested in a home, and I call the listing agent, and in the very first call, they've been on the market for 48 hours. It's a Saturday afternoon. And I'm like, hey, my name's Jason Sirois with Compass. My clients are so excited about this house. We absolutely love it. We've got to have it. I know I wanted to just, introduce myself, find out what's going on. How do you want to play this thing out? If the next few words out of that listing agent's mouth are, okay, that's awesome. We have 3 offers in hand and we have 4 other circling buyers. That's a very different offer strategy we're probably going to need to take than the house that's been on the market for 90 days and no offers in hand, obviously. So the strategy that we approach or that we take, one is aggressive, one is more conservative, one anchors low with the expectation of a counter offer, and one you got to put up, from the get-go. And oftentimes the first offer that you make speaks very loudly. So here's something I mean by that. Like in a situation where I have some clients that I know are offering on a home where there are already other offers on the table, we might consider, well, I would always actually say, like, we need to have appraisal gap coverage, even though we are confident that our offer is within the appraisal amount. The optics of having appraisal gap coverage gives the seller the confidence that no matter what happens, you're going to get what I am promising you. So barring any major defects that are discovered at inspection, this deal is not going to fail. And the timing of inspection, if you do that within the first 3 to 4 days, that's a lot more attractive than saying, hey, we'll inspect in 10 days and we'll still have one of our off ramps in the transaction, a week before closing. Push all that stuff up as early in the transaction as possible to give those sellers the confidence that says, if I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail fast.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So when you present your offer strategy to buyers, do you get pushback sometimes where they either resist or almost never? Okay.
Yep. Because if you have positioned yourself as the expert up to that point, and when you prepared them for offers, I could tell you, like, probably from the initial buyer consultation, how things are going to go if they're going to make an offer in a hot neighborhood within the next 2 weeks. So if you prepare them for the hottest scenario possible, hey, this is what it's like when on offer day, they're not uncomfortable. They're like, oh, we've been here before. We understand. This is what you were talking about when we chatted 2 weeks ago. We get it. Let's go. And then they understand what happens so we can act fast instead of saying, this is what an appraisal gap is. This is an escalation clause. And here's the worst case scenario. If you're presenting that, and by the way, in Colorado, we have one of the longest real estate contracts in the nation, is my understanding.
Oh, and
really? Yeah, it's like 18 pages long. So if you're seeing this offer for the first time and it's all this legal speak, you're like, dear God, this is so overwhelming to me as a buyer. This isn't like going to the grocery store and buying a loaf of bread. I mean, this is a much more serious contract with implications that are legally binding. So I need to make sure I understand this. But because I have gone through the prep and the homework prior to offer day, I feel prepared.
So it has to do with how you're positioning yourself as a professional and preparing those buyers for that ultimate offer. So it's all the things leading up to that point of presenting the offer strategy.
That's right.
Going back to your SOP.
It's all about the SOP. Yeah, exactly. And I have a document called SOP Master, and it sits on my bookmarks bar, and it's constantly being updated. And it's just okay, hey, when somebody, when I get a referral from an agent out of state, what things need to take place? All right, well, I need to send them a thank you card for sending the referral, introduce myself to the buyer, ensure that the buyer understands that we are all on the same page. And the agent who sent me and we're on the same page, and I'm your Denver area expert, no question about it. And how am I going to convey those things, right? So it's just, if you don't skip the processes, it's kind of like, it makes it foolproof. Because if I didn't have all those things, it would be a lot messier.
Yeah. So you mentioned it's a tab on your browser. Is it like a Google Doc or something, or what do you use?
Yeah, it's just a Google Doc, and standard operating procedure master. And that's kind of, and that document is the master document. And then I copy and paste things out of that and put it into the CRM. accordingly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So what are you charging people to get this document from you? I'm just kidding. There's
Not
probably people
currently for
thinking I'd
sale,
love to
but
get
I
a hold
thought
of it.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, anyway, yeah, sure.
What, so someone, well, I'm listening to this and thinking to myself, I really need to do that in my business. I mean, I have, but not to that detail. Um,
Sure.
if someone's listening to this and they're thinking, man, I don't have that, but I know I should probably do that. How would you suggest someone get started with
Yeah.
developing their SOP?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you can do it a couple of ways. There's kind of the easy way and the hard way. We'll start with the hard way, and that's really just I think it's an important exercise to
Hmm.
sit down, block out some time, turn your phone on airplane mode. Maybe don't do this during regular business hours, and just
Hmm.
think about what would a 10 out of 10 experience look like for a buyer. And
Hmm.
try to come from a headspace as if you knew nothing about the home buying experience. What
Hmm.
would you want to be informed of? And what would be important for you to know to feel confident moving forward? And then as you write those things down, it sort of just flows. And you just start to understand, oh, this is a good step that I should add, or this is a good time to communicate this piece of information. And you have to be methodical about that because if you just dump everything on somebody all at once, it's overwhelming as well. And then you got to think about what's the way in which I want to present this. And you can use Canva, you can use all kinds of existing materials that are out there on the internet that you can just rip off and duplicate and slap your name on someone else's thing with their permission. It doesn't mean that you can just like copy it, right? But another easier path is getting some accountability. And I found mine through coaching, and I get my coaching through Tom Ferry. And the reason I say that's actually like kind of the easier of the two paths is there are so many resources, and it doesn't have to be Tom Ferry. It can be any real estate organization where there are shared resources. So
Hmm.
when there are agents in other markets that have shared their buyer consultation with the Tom Ferry community or whatever community, insert the name here, right? Whatever that looks like for you. Um, you can share resources and start to understand, oh, this works. That's interesting. I'm going to pull that because that makes sense for me. That resonates with me. That piece doesn't. I'm going to leave that off. And you can really just, pick and choose the best pieces because there are a lot of people who are very willing to share their processes that are probably ahead of you in the game.
Totally. I think that's such a key point. I mean, why reinvent the wheel if there's colleagues that are willing to
Totally.
share?
Totally. Yeah, and
Yeah.
frankly, real estate, this is a career where you're an entrepreneur in a lot of senses, but you're not like inventing something brand new, right? This has been around for a
Right.
long time, but what you do have control over is the way in which you do it. And
Hmm.
I mean, you can make the process whatever you want. I mean, this is a choose your own adventure type of industry. So, if you want to lean heavily into online documentation, you can create this whole everything on Canva. You can make it look however you want, as long as it conveys all the right information.
Yeah. I love it. So, I really appreciate you being on and sharing this. This is really, I respect how you have this dialed in like this because it takes work, it takes
Yeah,
focus, and it takes time to really
sure.
define your processes, and it's really impressive.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. It has taken a lot of time, and it's an evolving process. You know, I have there's been plenty of
Totally.
times when I have even gone through and said, hey, at the end of that consultation, I'll kind of reflect on it for a few minutes and think that piece didn't really
Mhm.
resonate with this person. Was that kind of a one-off, or maybe do I need to change things up and change my delivery or change the way I
Mhm.
illustrate this process on my document or whatever? So it's just being flexible and open to, constant evolution and improvement.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Jason. This has been great. And if people want to get a hold of you, are you open to that? I mean, how can people find you?
I'm super easy to find. Instagram is my most, frequented social media platform. Jason.Sirois, Sirois. And you can also Google my name. I'm quite easy to find.
Yeah, I found all your video stuff you've been doing. So
Nice.
pretty impressive there as well.
Nice. Thank you very much. I need to get more consistent with the videos, but it's
Yeah,
fun to create
yeah.
those.
There's a lot to do in the real estate business
There is. Yeah,
for sure.
that's for sure.
So awesome. Well, thanks again. And for those of you that are listening, if you found value in this episode, please share it with friends and colleagues, and also consider subscribing. That's how the word gets out. Once again, my name is RJ Baxter here with Jason Sirois, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, RJ.